There was an evening this past week when the house went still after the last dish was dried, and something in you felt heavier than the day had any right to make it. You told yourself it was tiredness, but the feeling did not lift the way. Tiredness lifts. It stayed low, the way a room stays dim after the sun has gone down, and it had no name you could give it. If that has been happening to you, hear this plainly. You are not imagining it, and nothing is wrong with you for feeling it. Something in the sky is finishing a long journey, and in the next few nights it comes to its turn. So let the first thing said here be the gentlest thing. The shift you have been sensing is real. You have been reading it correctly all along. Whatever else the days ahead hold, you can set down the small fear that you are making it up, or that you are the only one, or that feeling it means something has gone wrong in you. None of those is true. What is true is simpler and older, and it is worth walking through slowly. The night this centers on is the 27th of August, running past midnight into the early hours of the 28th. Days from now, not tomorrow, which is why this reaches you while there is still time to get ready. On that night, the full moon does something it manages only a few times in a decade. It slides almost completely into the shadow the Earth throws behind itself. The dark inner cone the old astronomers named the umbra, and it darkens, and it turns a deep coppery red. Be careful with the words here, because this is where much of what you will hear online stops being honest. This is a partial eclipse, not a total one, but it is a deep partial, deeper than almost any you will see for years on either side of it. All but a thin, bright thread of the moon slips into the dark, close enough to 96 parts in 100 that anyone watching would swear they were seeing a full eclipse. The red will be there. The dimming will be there. What survives is one narrow silver edge along the lower rim, a single line of light that never quite goes out. So when someone tells you all of the moon turns to blood, gently set that claim aside. What is coming is a hair short of total, and that thin surviving edge makes it more moving, not less. The face nearly vanishes into shadow, and does not. This particular full moon carries an old name of its own. Long before it was an eclipse on anyone's calendar, the peoples of the Great Lakes called the August full moon the sturgeon moon, after the great fish that ran thickest in the warm weeks of late summer. Hold that for a breath. Yet another line of watchers, on this continent, looked up at this same August moon year upon year and gave it a name drawn from their living and their season. You are far from the first to find this moon worth marking, and you will be far from the last. It happens with the full moon riding in Pisces, only about 4 degrees into that sign, standing directly across the sky from the sun in Virgo. You need no telescope for any of it, no special glasses, no gear. Unlike an eclipse of the sun, which can burn the eyes, this one asks nothing but that you step outside and look up. The darkening will be visible across North and South America, and for parts of Europe and Africa, the reddened moon will be sinking toward the horizon as morning comes. If your sky happens to be clear that night, the slow turn is yours, free, with your own 2 eyes and no one's permission. It will not all arrive at once, and that is worth knowing, so you are not standing out there waiting for a switch to flip. First comes a faint dimming, so soft you might doubt your own eyes, as the moon enters the pale outer edge of the shadow. Then a dark bite appears along one side and begins to grow, slow and certain, eating across the bright disk over the better part of an hour. As more of the face goes under, the leftover light warms from grey toward orange toward that deep old copper, until near the greatest moment only the one silver thread remains along the lower rim. On the east coast, that deepest point lands just past midnight in the small hours after the day turns over. Farther west the moon climbs into view, already bitten, the shadow's edge upon it before it has fully cleared the rooftops. Either way, the slow passage takes hours, not minutes, which is a mercy. You can step out and go back in for warmth, and step out again, and it will still be there, changing by degrees. Now, the meaning people have laid over a night like this is older than anyone alive, and it deserves to be held as long tradition and lived human experience, never as fact. But the tradition is not random, and there is a reason it lands the way it does. Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, the final room in a house of 12. For thousands of years, across many cultures, the end of that circle has carried the same handful of themes. Completion, dissolving. The kind of ending that arrives the way water finds its level, not the way a door slams. Endings you feel in the body before you can point to them or explain them to a single soul. There is an old picture that goes with this last sign, and it is worth holding for a moment. Pisces was long imagined as the sea, the place all the rivers finally reach and lose their separate names. It became the sign of sleep and of dreams and of the soft borderless hour just before you drift off, when the day's hard edges blur and something older rises. That is the country this moon moves through. So if these nights have felt dreamlike to you, or tender, or strangely close to tears for no cause you can find, that is not you failing to cope. That is the season doing exactly what this last sign has always been said to do, which is to soften the walls a little and let the deeper water up. And the sky around this particular moon is doing something that mirrors all of that almost exactly. This eclipse is the sixth of a set of 7, all of them falling along the same line between Virgo and Pisces. That set opened back in September of 2024, and it closes in February of 2027. 2 full years of the sky returning to the same axis, over and over, and this is the second to last visit before the door shuts for good. It also completes a shorter season that opened only 2 weeks earlier, with the total eclipse of the sun in Leo on the 12th of August. So the ground under your feet is solid. A real 2-year arc in the heavens is drawing to its close, and part of you has been keeping time with it without meaning to. The way a body keeps time with a season it never once sat down and counted. Before going further, one small thing, and it costs nothing. If a single word has been sitting close to you these past few weeks, leave it in the comments below. Just one word. Your sign, if you know it. Or only the feeling that has been near. It helps to say a thing out loud in your own way, and it helps even more to scroll down afterward and find how many others set down the same word. You are further from alone in this than the quiet of your kitchen makes it seem, and seeing that in plain writing does something a promise never can. So what can you do with the nights between now and the eclipse? Nothing grand, nothing that costs money or asks you to become a different person than the one who is tired tonight. 5 small things instead, each within reach of an ordinary evening, each one gentle enough that you can do it badly and still have it count. The first is the plainest and the easiest to wave off. Rest. Guard your sleep as the shadow draws closer. There is a reason for saying it out loud rather than assuming it. You may have already caught yourself lying awake later than usual, or coming up out of sleep at 3 in the morning with your mind turning like a wheel will not settle back down. Around deep full moons, a great many people sleep thinner and dream sharper, and whether that is the sky itself or only the pull of the season, the tiredness that follows is real either way. So in these few nights, be kinder to your own body than you tend to allow. Go to bed before you think you have earned it. Leave the phone in another room where its light cannot find you. Let the dark be dark. A rested mind meets a night like this, steady, on its own feet, and a worn-out one meets it raw and easily frightened. And you get to choose which of the two you carry outside with you. The second is to finish one small thing you left undone. Only one. There is the drawer that has not shut properly in a month. The letter half written and abandoned on the side table. The call to an old friend you keep meaning to make and keep not making. There is a particular weight that comes from a loop left open, and you are carrying more of them than you have ever counted. When the sky is closing a long circle of its own, there is an old and sensible wisdom in letting one small circle of yours close alongside it. Do not attempt every item at once, because trying to do all of it in one evening is how people talk themselves out of starting. Pick a single unfinished thing that sits squarely within your power this week and finish it, and feel the odd lightness of a door that finally clicks into its frame. That lightness is the point of it. It teaches the body what completion feels like, on a scale small enough to hold in one hand. The third asks a little more of you, and it sits closest to the heart of this moon. Set aside 20 quiet minutes, sometime in the days before the eclipse, for a plain reflection on letting go. Here is one way into it. Think of an old coat that no longer fits, the kind kept at the back of the closet, out of habit and not because it will ever be worn again. Now think of what you have been carrying that is like that coat. a grievance held so long it has become part of your posture, or a version of yourself you outgrew years ago but still answer to when it calls, or a hope kept breathing long past the point where it was doing you any good. You need not throw a single one of those out tonight. All the reflection asks is that you name one of them honestly and say, without drama, that it may be time to let it be finished. Pisces is the sign of dissolving, and dissolving is far kinder than cutting. Water does not tear the old coat from your back, it loosens the threads night after night, until one ordinary morning the thing slips from your shoulders and you barely feel it go. The fourth is a near cousin of the third, but it points outward instead of in. Step back from one commitment that has gone flat and draining. You know the one. There was a plan set on the calendar, a thing you agreed to weeks ago, and lately, every time it crosses your mind, your chest tightens rather than lifts. That tightening is information, and it is worth trusting. It is not weakness, and it is not you turning difficult in your later years the way you may half fear you are becoming. Somewhere along the line, the thing stopped giving and started only taking, and you have kept marching toward it out of duty, or habit, or the plain fear of letting someone down. In these nights, give yourself leave to loosen your grip on that one thing. Not everything at once, which is only another way of doing nothing. 1. Cancel it, or push it further out, or say the honest sentence to the person who needs to hear it and has probably half sensed it already. The relief that floods in afterward will tell you, better than any advice could, whether the choice was right. The fifth and last is the smallest of them, and it may be the one that matters most. Keep a few plain sentences each night, a simple naming of what moved through you across the day. Not a record of events, of who called and what you ate. A short account of the inner weather instead, the wave of grief that rose out of nowhere while you were folding warm laundry and was gone almost before you could turn to face it. Or the face of someone you had not thought of in a decade, surfacing at the kitchen sink for no reason you can trace. Or the dream that came sharper and stranger than your dreams usually come, and stayed with you into the morning coffee. These small shifts are easy to lose because ordinary life closes back over them within the hour, the way calm water closes over a dropped stone and leaves no mark that it fell. 3 or 4 sentences a night catches them before they sink out of reach. And when the eclipse has come and gone, you will hold a small, honest record of what these nights came to mean to you, which is worth far more than any stranger's account of what they were supposed to mean. That is the set, and it is meant to be light. Rest and finish one small thing, and set down one old weight, and loosen one draining commitment, and keep a few honest sentences by lamplight. None of it asks you to believe anything at all. Every piece of it would leave your days a little better even if the sky above your roof did nothing whatsoever. And when the night itself arrives, there is nothing you are required to do but be there. You do not have to know a single constellation. Go out in your slippers with a cup of tea going cold in your hands, and stand in the yard while the neighborhood dims around you, the porch lights and the television glow small and far off, the ordinary street turned unfamiliar under a copper moon. Someone might be beside you, or you might have the quiet to yourself. Either is right. Watching is the task itself, to stand still under it and let it change, degree by slow degree, while nothing at all is asked of you, is a rare kind of rest in a life that asks for so much. Now, if some stubborn part of you still feels foolish for taking a moon this seriously at your age, stay with what comes next, because you are standing in far older and far better company than that voice wants you to think. The pull you feel toward this night is neither new nor naive. One of the oldest instincts the human family owns runs underneath it, and it has run there since long before anyone thought to write a word down. An eclipse like this one is never a single event on its own. It belongs to a family. Eclipses that share the same geometry return in a slow, patient rhythm, roughly every 18 years and 11 days. A cycle the ancient sky watchers uncovered long before anyone grasped the machinery that makes it work. This exact eclipse is one bead on a long string, one of more than 80 in a single family that astronomers still follow today under one shared name and number. That family began about 500 years ago, and it will keep going for centuries after every person now living is gone. The moon you will watch redden has cousins scattered across 1,000 years in either direction, before your birth and long past your death, each one a near copy of the last, arriving on schedule whether or not a single soul looks up to meet it. People worked all of this out with bare eyes and enormous patience, and further back than you would likely guess, in the marshy country between two rivers, in ancient Babylon, watchers of the sky were pressing eclipses into wet clay more than 2,600 years ago. They kept at it across generations, handing the work down like a family trade. They found the rhythm, that same steady return, and learned to use it to say ahead of time when the next darkening would arrive. To them, a reddened moon was an omen that reached all the way to the crown, a warning of a death or a fall in the house of the king. They took it so gravely that a ruler would sometimes seat a stand-in on the throne in his place, a substitute meant to catch whatever the sky was aiming so that the true king might be spared it. Make of that ritual what you will. Sit for a moment with the care buried inside it. These were not frightened simpletons cowering in the dark. They were meticulous keepers of a record, holding faith with the sky across lifetimes none of them would live to see the end of. And there is one more thing they did, and it should stop you where you stand. They did all of this without knowing that the earth turned or moved at all. No one among them had yet dreamed that the ground beneath their feet was itself a traveling thing, or named the quiet force that keeps the moon leashed to its path. They could not have told you why the shadow came. They only knew from watching and marking it down over hundreds of years, precisely when it would. That is not superstition. That is patience raised to something close to prayer. The long, faithful attention of people who trusted the sky enough to write down what it did and wait to be proven right. One of the things those hands left behind still exists, and you could go and stand before it. There is a clay tablet about the width of your open hand, held now in the British Museum in London, that lists eclipse after eclipse across more than a century and a half of ancient nights. The marks remain legible after all this time. They were pressed into the soft clay by someone who once stood under a coppery moon much like the one now coming, and judged it worth recording, and was right that it would still matter to a stranger long after every name that watcher knew had crumbled into dust. When you step outside on the 27th, you will be doing, in your own small way, the same thing that Hand was doing. Looking up, marking that it happened, deciding that it counts. And those watchers were not the only ones, which is the part that raises the hair along the arm. Half a world away, with no knowledge of Babylon and no possible way to have any, astronomers in ancient China were keeping eclipse records of their own. Theirs were scratched first onto bone, the darkenings of both sun and moon set down by hand, and carried forward through dynasty after dynasty into the longest unbroken watch of the sky that any people on Earth has ever kept. Two civilizations that never met, that shared no language and no gods and no borders, both looked up at the same kind of reddening moon and reached the same conclusion, without a word passing between them, that it was worth stopping for, that it should be marked, and that a night like this asked something of the people standing beneath it. So hold on to this when the small doubting voice creeps back in, as it will. The instinct that made you feel this eclipse before you even knew it was on the calendar is the same instinct that filled those clay tablets and those carved bones. It is thousands of years deep. It crossed oceans it had no earthly way of crossing, and it is still running on the night you will step outside to look up. You are not being silly, and you are not too old for wonder. You are keeping a very old appointment, one that a long line of patient people kept before you and handed forward for you to keep in turn. Now, one honest thing that this channel will always tell you, even when it is not the exciting thing to say. A quiet, uneventful night holds exactly as much truth as a night crowded with signs. If the eclipse comes and goes and you feel nothing dramatic, no wave, no vision, no sudden knowing that rearranges your life, that is no failure, and it does not mean you did it wrong. Some of these nights arrive like a wave against the rocks, and some arrive like a still pond at dusk, and the still pond is no less real than the wave for being calm. You owe this moon no dramatic experience, and it owes you none in return. A gentle night where you went out and stood a while and closed one small loop and slept soundly after is a night beautifully kept. Let that be enough, because it is enough, and the people selling you a guaranteed spiritual event are the ones to trust the least. Hold it this way, if it helps. What made these nights matter was never the size of the feeling. It was that you turned toward the sky at all, that for one ordinary evening you stood in the same posture as every watcher who ever pressed a moon like this into clay or bone, present for something older and larger than the day's small errands. That posture is the practice itself. A calm heart that came outside and stood there kept the appointment as faithfully as a racing one ever could. Two more gentle cautions, said with real care, because a night like this can stir things up. Feeling runs high around a deep moon, and a strong feeling is not the same thing as a clear instruction. So if a wave of certainty rolls in during these nights and tells you to end something large, or leave something permanent, or spend what you cannot afford to lose, let it move all the way through you before you act on any of it. Sleep on it, and let the ordinary light of the next afternoon have its say. A single emotional wave is a poor place to stand while making a choice you can never take back. The feeling itself is worth honoring and worth writing down. It is not worth obeying on the spot. And this one, plainly, if the heaviness you've been carrying does not lift after these nights have passed, if instead it settles in and stays and begins to dull the ordinary things that used to hold their color, please take that seriously and take it kindly. Weight of the body and weight of the heart that will not move is real, and it is not something a person is meant to ride out alone. Reaching toward a trusted friend or a doctor or someone trained for exactly this takes strength rather than proving the lack of it. It may be among the strongest things a person ever does. The sky is no replacement for that kind of help, and it would never once ask you to treat it as one. Which brings all of this back around to the softest truth of the night. You are not the exception here. You are not the chosen one, singled out by the heavens for a private message that reached no other ear. The pull you have been feeling is being felt this very week by more people than you could hope to count, older than you and younger than you. They're in kitchens and on back porches and at dark bedroom windows all across that darkened half of the earth. There will be a night when the moon turns red. That is a larger thing than being chosen, not a smaller one. It means you are in good and ordinary company, standing at the same plain gate that many are walking toward even now, that countless others walked through long before you, all the way back to those patient watchers with their clay and their bone. So step outside if your night sky is clear, and let the light do whatever it is going to do. And carry one question out there with you into the dark. What is the one thing you have been holding onto that could be allowed at last to finish before the shadow lifts? You need not answer it standing in the yard. Let it keep you company while you watch the moon go dark and slowly come back to itself. Because in the end, for all the weight it carries, this is not a door slamming shut on your life. It is water finding its level and carrying what is already finished gently out to sea. The last of these 7 eclipses, the one that finally closes the 2-year arc, comes next February, back in Virgo, that plain and honest sign of ordinary work and daily care. When that night arrives, this channel will walk you to that final gate as well, the same way as tonight, without fear and without a single thing to sell you. If you would like to be here when it does, stay close and you will not have to watch that sky alone either. Rest well across the nights that remain. The moon will keep its appointment faithfully, as it always has. And so, in your own good time, will you?